Hi there, my name's Corell, and today we're going to be taking a look at the most dangerous trap that you've never been hurt by, the Holocube. These things are pretty simple in concept, but they're insanely powerful in execution. The idea is really pretty straightforward. If you get too close to one, it'll disappear. Now by itself, that's not really that big of a deal, but the traps revealed by a disappearing block certainly can be a big deal. The traps and guards normally can't target through a Holocube until it disappears, but they can fire, or home in the case of 100-bolt shots or iron claws, through a Holocube accidentally if it targets the player normally. Holocubes are triggered usually by the player moving into any orthogonal space, that is, any space in a straight line from the face of a Holocube. You can see this here. I can walk right on up to that corner of the Holocube and it's not triggering, but the moment I step into any of these blocks that are in a straight line from the face of the Holocube, it immediately disappears. Now, it's important to note that Holocubes triggered this way don't provide any sort of danger directional indicator to the raider. So if I walk over here, you'll notice that directional indicator at the top of my screen, and that tells me that there's danger upcoming. If I walk over to this Holocube, though, I don't get that. There is no indicator indicating where the danger is coming from, except for the sound of the Holocube disappearing itself. If you can manage to mask that sound as a builder, you can gain a great advantage over the raider. Now additionally, Holocubes can be triggered by any form of damage, whether that's by traps, guards, raiders, or even just stuff passing through them. So I've got a bolt trap over there. If that fires, this Holocube is going to disappear regardless of whether or not I trigger the Holocube. You can see that there, that Holocube is just going to go away. Now speaking of guards, Holocubes don't block guard movement by default. Guards won't aggro through the Holocube, and they won't intentionally target a raider through a Holocube, but they will quite happily march through the Holocube back and forth on either patrol paths or to try and get an angle on the raider. So for instance, if I come over here, I'm going to let that guard path back through the Holocube. Now you can see here, the guard hasn't aggro'd, and he won't aggro until he sees me through that Holocube. Then, if I walk back over here, we'll see that the guard will happily march through that Holocube to try and get a line on me again. Now, Holocubes nearly require mods in order to reach their maximum effectiveness. Fortunately, the available mods are quite diverse and provide a wide range of mechanical considerations to add on to the raider's experience. The first mod we'll look at here is the Eagle Eye mod. This increases the trap detection range from 1 block to 3 blocks. That's very, very useful. And if we go out here and run a test on this, you can see that I'm out here on the 4th block. I'm fine right up until I cross this barrier here. Then the Holocube goes off much earlier than expected. Now, I don't see a whole lot of raiders that use Eagle Eye, which is honestly kind of baffling to me. It's honestly one of the strongest mods for the Holocube, and the reason for that is Eagle Eye lets you catch raiders off guard. Most of them will not look for a Holocube that far away, and with the Picture Perfect mod that we'll look at in a second, you often can't even see it coming. Speaking of the Picture Perfect mod, this mod makes the holographic mirage kind of effect, that kind of wavy effect on the block that you might have noticed previously, noticeable at a significantly shorter distance. It is still noticeable, but you have to get a lot closer before it becomes apparent. This mod is almost required if the raider ever has the Holocube in their direct line of sight. You need this mod if you're going to make effective use of Holocubes. Otherwise, a Holocube without this mod is going to be noticed almost immediately from almost any distance, and if the raider knows it's there, they're probably going to suspect there's something fishy going on behind it that they can't see. So as soon as you don't have this mod on a Holocube and the Holocube's presence is obvious, you've already lost that fight. The raider knows what's coming. Second wave, of course, works the same way as the Corrosive Cube's second wave mod. It acts like a bedrock cube until such time as the raider picks up the genmat, after which the Holocube will undergo a 4-second transition where it turns into a Holocube. And after that 4 seconds, it can trigger normally. And just like the Corrosive Cubes, Holocubes with the second wave mod don't count as a valid Harvey pathway, that is, Harvey can't walk over them, but Harvey can walk over them before the genmat is picked up if they're part of a shorter path to the genmat than the actual Harvey path that is available. Masquerade is probably the most technically complex and specialized mod for the Holocube. It's probably going to be the one that most people are going to pick up last out of the batch. it blocks guard movements as if the Holocube is a solid cube, which causes the guards to be unable to move through the Holocube either when they're aggro'd or on patrol paths. Now, when you're recording a patrol path, a guard can still fall through it when you're defining that patrol path, i.e. when you're in record mode, but the guard will refuse to perform the movement that actually drops them through that Holocube until the Holocube disappears once the map actually gets raided. So in actual raid mode, that guard patrol will not execute in full until the Holocube is triggered. Now we can see an example of that here. I've got this Enforcer above a Holocube with the Picture Perfect and Masquerade mods on it. And if I grab this guy and I walk him down here, we'll see in record mode we fall right through that cube. Then if I tell him to stand guard, he'll stand guard. But you'll notice that his hologram here in build mode just kind of walks up to the cube. It doesn't actually fall in. And you'll also notice that if I test from start here, that guard doesn't really fall into the Holocube. I can go back up over here where he's not going to see me. And you'll see he's just kind of hanging out there above the Holocube. However, if I break that Holocube, he'll go on ahead and jump down there. So now that all the technical details are out of the way, let's talk tactics. Holocubes are insanely useful. They're one of the deadliest traps in the game, despite not damaging raiders in the slightest. But I do see a lot of new builders misusing them. The most common problem is using Holocubes at all when the raider is nowhere near bedrock, and knows it. If you build a map in the sky, there's not going to be any bedrock up there, so anything that looks like bedrock is therefore one of two things. It's either a second wave, Holocube, Corrosive Cube, or Plasma Sentinel, or it's an active Holocube. Fortunately for the raider in this case, it's super easy to check. Grenades, bolts from either ranged weapon, just walking near it to spring the trap and being prepared to get out of the way, all of those are excellent and easy ways for a raider to check the presence of a Holocube. And if they see random pieces of bedrock in a place that doesn't make sense or even is just a little bit too convenient, most cases they're going to check. Take a look at a practical example here. I've got this long tunnel thing. There's a block here. Obviously that's solid. I can check that with my plasma crossbow here. And the rest of this is just, cubes. And I can see there's a corner there. I don't know what's around that corner. I can't see the holographic flickering effect from this Holocube here, but at the same time, I am absolutely 100% sure that this is a Holocube, and there's two reasons for that, really. For one, there's the lack of any debris or buildup along the bottom corner there. The game likes to put sand and stuff in various different corners, and it won't do that next to a Holocube. So you can actually be sure that that is a Holocube, or rather that it's not a Holocube if there is sand built up in that little corner back there. That's a very common method of checking them. Additionally, the Holocube is in a spot where it is just too convenient. There's no way that the builder wouldn't have put a Holocube with a trap there facing down that blind hallway, because it's a perfect spot for a dark trap or a flame trap to catch me from behind them going around that corner. So, of course, I'm going to look at that, I'm going to see, no, that's just a little bit too perfect here, and I'm going to check it. And hey, look, it's a Holocube. Now, to avoid your Holocubes being just a little bit too obvious, they're best used in proximity with bedrock so their appearance is less notable. Obviously, if there's a bedrock wall and there's a Holocube in the middle of it, it's going to be a lot less obvious. It's just not going to stand out as much when it's among a bunch of like things. So if I stick a Holocube back in this little corner here with the Picture Perfect mod on, and then I go test from start, and we will take a look at this. And yeah, that doesn't stand out like a sore thumb anymore, because it's just one bedrock cube in a line of bedrock cubes. There's really not much of a way of telling that particular Holocube apart from any of the other nearby bedrock. Only if I just happen to check that one bedrock cube will that be noticeable. Now, sometimes bedrock just isn't available when you need it, and that's pretty annoying. Sometimes you want to put a Holocube in a nice long tunnel like this, and there just isn't really any bedrock available. And that can be pretty annoying. But that's where the second wave mod for Holocubes comes in handy. If you take a quick look at this hallway, where's the Holocube? Well, they're all Holocubes. The answer is just that most of them are second wave holocubes, and there is only one of these that is actually a trap. Second wave is perfect for this with holocubes specifically because holocubes are quite cheap. If we look at the cost for these, they are only 10 apiece compared to the 15 for a corrosive cube, and the second wave mod is only a 5 on top of that, so we only end up paying a total of 15 capacity for each one of these fake bedrock blocks that we have. Now, mind you, this is only really going to work if you have another pathway out of the level if you put these in the floor. Your best bet might be to stick to using them in the ceilings or the walls of your map, just so that you don't have to create a second wave for the Harvey to get out so that he'll walk over these second wave holocubes. And of course, as the raider is coming back out of your level with the gen mat, these are going to disappear as they pass by them. That might be a problem, it might not be. That is entirely up to your outpost and design ethos. Now, holocubes are also one of the main traps that suffers from overpainting your level. I haven't really discussed decorations in depth yet, but how you decorate your map is as much a weapon as any of the traps that are actually inside of it. Over-decorating your level, though, has downsides. If you paint all the bedrock in your map except for one block, then ask a raider to point to where the holocube is, well, it's obviously that one. It's the only one without a painted surface. Since you can't paint or attach anything to holocube block surfaces, where they are becomes immediately apparent to a raider. By looking at another example of this up here, I painted the inside of this hallway, and I'm immediately going to say, okay, something's fishy here because he's painted every surface except for these. So something weird is going on here. I'm going to just check all of these to make sure, and there's the holocube. Then I'm going to go grab the gen mat, and on the way back I'm going to look at this again and say, okay, all those surfaces were painted. Why aren't any of these painted? And then I'm going to start checking them again, and on the second wave, of course, since these are second wave holocubes, they're going to pop. So to give you a practical example of this, we are here in one of my maps that's out on social. The name of it is Burley, B-U-R-L-E-Y, and it is a fairly complicated map in a number of respects, but one of the main things going on here is this hallway. This hallway is how you get into the main part of the map, and there's a holocube in here. Quick, where's the holocube? You can't tell. There's no way of telling from here. I can't look at the decorations that have been placed here and say there's a holocube, because the decorations are all on blocks that cannot be holocubes by definition. They aren't bedrock. And this map, this part of the map in general, isn't painted. There's a bunch of other parts of the map that do have painting on them, but there's enough else going on in this part of the map with the floor decals and everything else, and with these lights to, it looks nice. It's not terrible, but it's not immediately apparent where the holocube is because it's hidden. It's very well hidden. And one of these things is a holocube, and it has a very effective trap behind it. It's got a bomb trap in there, and it's got some angle blocks to chuck bombs all over the place in there. If you don't know what you're doing, or if one of those bombs takes a lucky bounce off that surface, or you go charging ahead and get shot by that bolt trap or anything else, you're in for a world of hurt. Now, if I had painted all along the floor in here, or all along the walls, except for that one block, it would have been immediately obvious what I was up to there because I could not have painted that single holocube. So be very careful where you put your attachments and paint and decals. Make sure that you are not overpainting your level so that you can still pull tricks like this when it's appropriate. Now, a lot of builders really only consider holocubes for hallways or scenarios where the raider has to run or is heavily encouraged to run up right next to the holocube. Personally, I think that's a mistake. Holocubes with Eagle Eye are far more likely to catch raiders off guard. If you think about the raider's awareness as kind of a bubble or a cone, their field of vision is going to, extend on basically into infinity in a single direction or in a single cone. However, raiders typically won't analyze the entire cone for threats. They'll look for guards pretty far out. They'll look for traps that might hit them, aka on the same plane as they are, pretty effectively. So, they'll look for a far-off dart trap or a bomb trap. They'll check for bomb traps above them especially. They might check the floor for an impaler trap. They'll check for all that sort of thing. However, usually they will not check for holocubes until they're fairly close to the holocube. So if you have a holocube that triggers from a much further distance than normal, yes, it's harder to make a trap that's actually effective at that distance, but you are far more likely for the raider to not notice the holocube until it's too late. So let's consider a couple of scenarios here. We have this one. We've got a nice little hallway here. If I was to ask you to point to a holocube in here, you wouldn't necessarily know which one of these bedrock blocks over on the right side that it is. I mean, they're all bedrock, right? They all look pretty much the same. But I can still tell this is a very suspicious wall here. Bedrock usually doesn't generate this flat for this long. So I think there's probably going to be something odd going on here. So I can just start checking that with my plasma crossbow, or with a sword, or with a bolt shot, or whatever. And eventually I'm going to hit this, and I'm going to see that it's a holocube, and I'm going to guess that there's going to be a trap right behind that. And I can probably slip in there with my sword, or with the Volt Lancer, or with a grenade, or really with anything, and destroy that trap before it really has a chance to do much damage. So let's compare that to this scenario. Here we've got a nice wide hallway. Quick point to the threats. Well, we know from past experience this is going to be a holocube, right? Well, I put second wave on it, so it's not anymore. So where is the threat? Well, the answer is there's actually a bunch of threats in this room, and it's really, really hard to tell where or what ones might be the threat. Because I have Eagle Eye on holocubes on, well, also with Picture Perfect, but in a lot of places in here. If I walk over this trip line, you can see we had 2 holocubes disappear on either side of the tunnel. And that is far enough back for homing bolt shot traps to start to track me. So if I just try and back up in the center, both of them track me. If I try and back up on one edge or the other, the one from the far edge will track me. So I need to be very careful about my step in here. Oh, look, there's another one. So those holocubes can pop up in very unexpected locations and at very unexpected times if you take advantage of the Eagle Eye mod properly. So let's take a look at one final example here. So let's just say I've entered this tunnel. I'm a pretty cautious type of guy, right? I am going to look at this and say, that looks like a holocube. I can see a teeny tiny little bit of shimmer on that, even despite the Picture Perfect mod on there. And I can look over there and say, there's probably a trap behind that, right? So I'm going to inch my way up to this. I'm going to stop at a distance that I know is safe, and I'm going to peek around the corner. Well, there's no trap over there. Okay, that's a little odd. Maybe that's just a second wave trap, right? Yeah, okay, so if that's a second wave trap, the most likely thing for the builder to put behind this is going to be a bomb trap. And that'll spew bombs out down this hallway, it'll flood this room, and if I stay here, I die. Okay, that's a pretty basic trap, I can work with that. But the bombs aren't going to go that way down the hallway. That would just be silly. They're not going to, turn the corner and go down there of their own accord. So I should be fine if I just walk past. And a lot of speedrunners are just going to walk past anyway, so really, I'm not too concerned here, right? I just need to step through. And then you realize that that was actually a holocube with Eagle Eye back there, and now you have Hunter homing bolts chasing you back down this hallway and out here, where there's really no cover from them. That type of scenario is the type of thing that Eagle Eye is an excellent mod to produce, because there's really not a whole lot of defense for the raider, or even a cautious raider, to understand what's going on. Now, thinking about the game of Meet Your Maker in more of a metagaming sense, it's very often a game about controlling range, both as a builder and as a raider. As a builder, you want to keep the raider in a specific location or at a specific range from your traps, right? If you're using a lot of enforcers, you want to maintain a lot of distance between the raider and your enforcers, or a raider with a sword is just going to cut them up. At the same time, you don't want your raider to be very far away when you're deploying things like a bomb trap or an armored warmonger. So you want to keep the raider at a specific distance from your trap setups, because that's where they're effective, right? As a raider, the game's all about figuring out what range the builder is targeting and being literally anywhere else. It doesn't matter whether you're in front of it, it doesn't matter whether you're out of range. As long as you are not in that band of ranges where the builder's traps are going to be effective, you're golden. You'll be fine. Now, holocubes are one of the strongest tools at a builder's disposal to help control range. If you know the mechanics as a raider, you can have a pretty good chance of avoiding that critical range, and if you know the mechanics well as a builder, you have a lot more of a chance of forcing the raider into a scenario where they're going to be in that critical range of your traps. Anyway, that's all for today, and next time we'll start moving back more into the active traps with a quick look at the Iron Claw. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.